go. So first, I would like to introduce we'll let our panelists introduce themselves, but I just wanted to show you, this is our website that you could actually find our APA Graduate School panel information here. You can click on that link. It will show you our current graduate school panel, and it will also show you the previous APA panelists. I think there are two different videos below it. So it's you have resources available for you for our students. If you are interested in watching all of them, or you have enough information about the panel discussion today, that will be wonderful as well. So I will just let our panelists introduce themselves, and we probably just go with the order here. So our panelists will introduce themselves and then kind of share a little bit about their experiences when they applied for a graduate program.
Okay, so I can start. Hi everybody, my name is Dorcas. I am currently a second-year grad student at the University of Kansas. I'm a Malaysian and I speak three languages, mainly Mandarin Chinese, English, and Malay. And as of now, I'm pretty open to all populations, but the majority of my clinical experiences are with pediatrics. So for my first year, I worked a lot with non-verbal children and autistic children. So I would say that's where my expertise is kind of at right now. And I have a lot of experiences with AAC devices. So I think I would like to continue being in or working with pediatric populations as of now. But we'll see. I don't know.
All right, thank you so much, Doris. Mei Hua.
Hi, everyone. My name is Mei Hua, and I am currently a second-year graduate student at MGH in Boston, actually Institute of Health Professions. They would like us to say the whole name. So yeah, I was originally a BCBA, and then I really value working with wonderful SLPs, and then I really like languages. So my undergrad degree was in CSD as well. So I decided to come back for a second master. So hopefully become a dually certified SLP and BCBA. I have a strong interest in research as well. Currently doing my thesis on aphasia.
Thank you, Mei Hua. Delphine.
Hi, everyone. My name is Delphine. I am an audiologist at the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, so I see all pediatrics. I was a CSD major in undergrad, and I knew actually in high school that I wanted to go into audiology, so I applied only to audiology programs and attended Vanderbilt in Nashville, Tennessee. I was pretty open kind of location-wise, but one of the really big things that I prioritize, and I definitely recommend to other people, is prioritizing the degree that will cost the least for you. And that's a little bit of my story.
Thank you, Delphine. Herman.
Hey everyone, my name is Herman, and I am a first-year SLP student at the University of Kansas. I did my bachelor's in CSD at the University of Wisconsin, Eau Claire. And yeah, right now I'm mainly working with pediatrics at a school setting, and I'm interested in working with multilingual families as well. That's my research expertise in the lab. And yeah, I'm hoping to learn more as well.
Thank you, Herman. Janella.
Hi, I'm Janella. I'm a second-year SLP grad student at the University of Southern California, or USC. I'm Filipino American. I am bilingual in Tagalog and English. I got my bachelor's in liberal studies at Cal Poly Pomona. I ended up doing a post-bac in communication sciences and disorders at Cal State Fullerton, and then now I'm here in grad school. I'm also heavily involved in my chapter NISLA here at USC. as well as at the national and national level with their IDEA work group. We're focused on inclusion, diversity, equity, and action. And then I'm just really interested in pediatrics across the whole board. I need to hone in exactly where I want to work with pediatrics. Right now, I'm at Children's Hospital Los Angeles's community clinic, and I'm working with a lot of multilingual families and children with complex communication needs.
That's awesome. Thank you, Janella. Andrea, this Andrea's second time to be on the panel for the caucus.
Hi, everyone. I'm Andrea. So I think I'm one of the only speech therapists, like as far as I've been working. I have over 10 years of experience in the field. I work primarily at a hospital, Inova Fairfax Hospital, that's right outside of Washington, D.C. So I primarily work with adults in acute care, a lot of dysphagia, traumatic brain injury, cardiac population as well. I was also I kind of had a circuitous path to speech pathology. I actually worked as a journalist for 4 years. I had a totally different degree in communications, and then I decided that wasn't for me. So I ended up going back to school, back to grad school. I did a reentry program, did all my kind of prerequisites at GW, George Washington University in DC. And then I was able to continue on and finish up there. So I ended up staying in the area, and I worked, like I said, at one of the local hospitals, and I love it.
Great. Well, thank you, everybody. I'm gonna stop sharing now. Today we would like to, we have some pointers depending on what our students here would like to talk about, because we have about 15 students here. Do you have any specific questions for the panelists?
Yes, hi, my name is Brenda. I was just wondering, for the day receiving a master's in arts or a master's in science? Different.
I'm receiving a master's in science.
So I have an MA, and honestly, I don't think it really matters, to be honest, because we have probably in our group of our team of speech therapists, I mean, we have people with an MS, with an MA, MED. So I think generally, I mean, if you graduate with some sort of master's in speech pathology, you would be prepared, hopefully.
Okay, thank you.
I think we have a small group here. Maybe like would students like to kind of
Sorry,
let
I wanted to ask a question.
go ahead. Perfect.
Sorry. Okay, so it was mentioned earlier to pick the program that's the least expensive, for lack of better terminology. Could anyone on the panel elaborate on, I guess, grad school costs and if anyone did financial aid? Because that's sort of what I'm hoping to learn more about, because grad school can get pretty expensive.
I think I can answer this question. Yeah, because okay, let me just make this clear. Grad school is expensive. Like some schools are really expensive, and yes, they might have good programs, but I don't want to be like breaking the bank just to go to that dream school that I always wanted to. But I think the rule of thumb here is to always ask and do your research. And because in my case, because I'm not American, I'm not from the US, so I'm not eligible for a lot of financial aid situations, like financial aid. But for scholarships and assistantships, that was what I was eligible for. So I think reaching out to ask for like available scholarships or even assistantships, working as research assistants or teaching assistants, or even within the department can really help to alleviate like the costs. But in the end, I feel like what matters the most, at least in my terms, is the costs of graduate school as well. So I guess that will help a bit.
Yeah, I want to add to that. echoing definitely ask programs and just, never hurts to get details. And some small things that, for example, I didn't realize is that when there were some programs I applied to where you did not get to apply, for example, for a teaching assistantship or a graduate assistantship until after you had committed to the school. So you have to commit by May, so end of spring, early summer to a program. And in my world, I want to know exactly what my financial aid package is going to be, what my options were before committing to, in my case, 4 years of going to that school. And some of them would say, oh, you aren't eligible to apply until your first semester or, the summer right before you start. And, for some people that's okay. But for me, that was too uncertain to not know what exactly I'd be paying and could go through. Herman mentioned sticker price as well. And it's like a lot of things. I think sticker price can be a little bit deceiving sometimes. So, sometimes a school with a really high sticker price has a lot more funds for scholarships if you're eligible in various ways. So I went to a private university with a very high sticker price, and I went there only because I got a scholarship. And so this private expensive university ended up being cheaper for me than some other public universities, which only gave me smaller scholarships. So just something to think about to keep in perspective.
So just to add on to, just being on the other side of, I've been through grad school and paying the loans. I mean, you definitely, I would think about how cost effective it is, but I mean, beyond that, I would also evaluate a program maybe by what sort of clinical experiences it can provide you. Because that means a lot for when you're applying. So what sorts of externships they're offering, like what sorts of relationships do they have with community clinics or hospitals in the area, because they're the ones that are going to be helping you get your foot in the door. And then, obviously when it comes time when you're graduating and you're applying for a job, if you have had a externship at a pretty good placement, you could get in that way. So obviously cost is very, very important because I went to a very expensive grad school, but evaluate the program by what externships it can provide for you.
I can echo on that, if I may. It's yes, I agree that you also want to look into whether you are gonna be the person who looks for your internship or the university will look for your internship for you, because that will make a difference when you are in the program and what kind of clinical experiences that you would like to have. So yeah, thank you.
Another thing I wanted to add is tuition costs aside, make when you're looking for a program, see if it's the living situation. Is it gonna be near the school? Do you need a car to travel? For example, I'm at the University of Kansas and it's an inter-campus program, which means you have to drive 40 minutes from the local KU main campus to the KUMC campus, which is the medical campus. And so I think I don't regret it at all, but it did cost me some money, to be very honest. And so and it does take time and energy, especially when there's traffic in Kansas City and stuff like that. So just having that in mind when you apply for programs. Do you need that extra cost to travel? How high the living expenses are, how much are the living prices for houses and stuff like that. So just keeping that in mind.
To echo that too, I want to, for those who are interested in research, going to a university where you can make more connection. It's also a good way too. You can get good mentorship. I'm not saying you won't get that in a smaller school, but for university that focus on research, you do have more opportunity to participate in research. That's something to think about too.
Great. We have some questions in the chat. So for our panel, would anybody like to share letter of intent advice for applying for graduate school?
When I was writing my letters of intent, I definitely used my undergrad university's writing center quite a bit. And I was somebody who felt really comfortable with writing, but I thought, this resource is there. And I found that to be very, very helpful. So take advantage of the supports around you. And one piece of advice that I got from them that I still keep in mind when I've applied for jobs, cover letters, all of that is like looking at every sentence in your letter, your statement of purpose, whatever the school calls it. And if that can apply to a lot of other people, then change that sentence so that it applies only to you. And just thinking of, how that makes you unique in whatever you're saying. So that's something I'll that was given to me. That's not original, that I will pass along here too.
And I also wanted to add that when you're looking for a university, look at what expertise they have. Maybe are they like pediatric focused? Are they medical focused? And if it helps, if you can do that, reach out to a professor earlier. Reach out to like someone that you want to do research with, and then you can even include that in your letter of intent, like why specifically you want to go to that school and how you have made that connection with a professor, that taking that extra step to reach out. I think that shows that you stood out and you're really interested in doing that program.
And just to piggyback off of everyone, I also think just honing in on your why. Like, why do you want to be a speech language pathologist? Why do you want to be an audiologist? And just really honing in on what brought you into this field. What experiences have you done this far that shows your interest in this field, relevant experiences, relevant any volunteer experiences, leadership, student organizations. I think that really shows I guess like your commitment to this field and how hard you work to get into grad school.
Great. I think that's very helpful. There's a specific question for those of you practicing in California. What are the requirements for out-of-state students or out-of-state schools to be able to practice in California? Does anybody know?
I'm a grad student in California right now, but I know there are different requirements if you are out of state and you would like to come to California. I'm just not too sure what it is if anyone else is working in California right now.
Brenda, you can email me that question and I will find out the answer for you because I do know some colleagues from California and we'll figure it out for you.
Thank you very much. Thank
Yeah,
you.
of course. Just make sure you email me so I remember to do it.
I
Thanks.
sure will right after. Thank you.
Yeah. What experiences help you get into graduate school? Like what kind of like I know, Janella, you talked about those different opportunities. So would anybody like to elaborate on those things?
I can elaborate on my experiences. I worked as an instructional aide with special education in the Anaheim Elementary Unified School District. I was involved in my Cal State Fullerton in my postbac. They had like 5 different CSD student organizations. So like NISLA, there was one focused on SLP students, focusing on DEI. I know there's a cleft lip and palate organization, so I was involved in all those, and having those on my resume, I believe, helped. I also worked at the speech and hearing clinic on campus as the student assistant there. And yeah.
Actually, I have some questions. Can you hear me? Yeah. My postdoc is also Cal State Fullerton, and I'm also wondering whether kind of joining all the CST stuff is possible. Do you recommend me to join all of them? Because I'm interested in all of them, but sometimes I'm kind of worried that whether it is too demanding at some point.
No, definitely. I joined all of them. I was a member. I paid my membership fees for all, I don't know, like 4 or 5 of them. I can't remember all of them at the top of my head right now. I'm so sorry. But I joined pretty much all of them and I tried to join as many events as I can. I was mostly interested in any volunteer opportunities that they offered, like any walks, any local volunteer opportunities at other speech clinics, walks benefiting like dysphonia or childhood apraxia of speech. So things like that is like what I was really interested in. And I think joining these clubs gave me those informations and allowed me to do those things. So I recommend it if you have the time.
Thank you. So when you're writing about your SOP and including your kind of self experience or cognitive experience, do you organize it and based on content or any time order? Which thing do you think is much to make it more stronger? I don't know. So
Maybe I will answer that. I wrote my story. I really make it unique and it's just about me and let them know like why they should pick me. Kind of like you're writing like your own little autobiography, but not like too long, but it tells a story that's interesting. I came from a different profession. I love working with neurodivergent children, so I became the leader to start a respite care for Chinese family. So I put all my energy there and that's all I did. But that's really impactful. And I think sometimes they look for leadership and see what you can contribute differently. And especially for us who are Asian descent, brings a lot to the field because as we know, the field is predominantly Caucasian and they need diversity and we are the source, could be contributing to the diversity movement. So anything that you could stand out and anything that you're passionate about, that's really cool. Another fun thing, I made a YouTube video like teaching one of my dialect of Chinese and I just got 10,000 views. And I wrote that in my essay and I don't think anybody done that, but that was kind of cool. So that could be something, right? Just make yourself unique and stand out, but not in a, show off way, but just make yourself very presentable and you have fun, I guess. That's how I did it, I guess.
thank you. I think it is really difficult to start with the first paragraph. Oh, sorry. Do you have any advice?
Yeah, it's always hard to start reading it sometimes. I liked what Meihua said about making it a story. So I will disclosure, I've never sat on a graduate admissions committee. However, I have for NISLA and also for the API caucus been the person who is reading through a whole bunch of resumes and a whole bunch of paragraphs and a whole bunch of applications. And you remember that your statement of purpose is a writing sample. So people really care about how you're showcasing your writing skills in it because you're going to do a lot of writing in the future while you're in school and also in your practice. And also remember that whoever is reviewing, whatever professor is looking at what you're writing, they've looked at so many others that same day. For the past week, they've just been reading these. So how are you making your story something that is interesting, something that will be memorable to them? I think is another thing to think about.
Thank you.
If I can add to that, because I'm also on the grad application committee. So one thing that you might want to think about is to check out this department's mission and vision statements and see if they have any equity, diversity, inclusion statement. So your letter or the personal statement that you write about yourself, you wanted to write it in the way that matches the department's mission and vision, to really understand what your letter, you wanted to show that you know their program. Make sure the name of the program is correct. Make sure you see, like you want to study a little bit about the professors and know about their expertise and put their name on it because they might be on the committee. And they always get very excited when they see their names on the letter. And like many of you said, that just really focus on your expertise, like you something special about you. And don't be afraid to put down the APA caucus on your resume, because that's one more line to your resume. It shows it's a national organization, and it's a lot of people know about us now. So I think it will be helpful.
Thank you. As you are one of the member of the committee, I'm wondering that including too much, like, for example, more than 2 name of the faculty, kind of their lab, more than 2 can be too much, or is it too a lot?
I will say if your letter shows your story and somehow your interest and your life experiences work well with the expertise of the faculty, I think if everything goes well, I think it would add points to your letter. It just makes your letter more like, oh yeah, I think this person matches what we do, will be helpful for this program. So something to think about.
Thank you. I'm currently in the process of writing, and I already mentioned 3 professors, so I think it is too much. So yeah, maybe 3 is too much, or what do you think? I don't know.
Well, it kind of really depends on what you wanted to make sure that you know the requirements from each grad school. Like they all have their like specific instructions on how you write your letter. Some will just say it's a generic letter, it's fine, but others will have specific pointers that would like you to address. So make sure you know what the instructions are, so you won't get points off because of that. All right, so let's see what, yeah, you're welcome. Let's see what other questions we have here. Scholarship opportunities. Can our panelists share your experience on how you learn about scholarship opportunities or like assistantship opportunities?
I know at GW, so like I said, I'm in a little bit of a unique situation because I did my reentry program at GW. So essentially I was admitted and knew I was going to go to grad school there. But at the end of our reentry year, they told us, okay, we have, I don't know, 3 teaching assistant positions available. And so we had a relatively smaller reentry group, maybe about like, I don't know, 15 of us, 16 of us. And everyone was pretty competitive, but they really went by GPA, which is really interesting. So it was really based on that. And we really didn't find out. I mean, I had known that there were positions available. They just didn't tell us how many there were until the very end of the year. I didn't get one, unfortunately. But you know, I was able to get some leadership scholarships and some other things, but it's a lot of loans.
I had responded in the chat, and I can give a little more detail as well. So, so my program in particular, when you applied, you were automatically considered for merit scholarships. Some schools I applied to for a specific scholarship, you had to do something extra. So fill out a different application, maybe write some separate essay. Some universities, you kind of check if you want to be considered for a GA, RA, TA position. Others, you're applying separately. I found in my process that most universities would have this information in their FAQs, kind of how to apply section, but certainly, feel free to reach out to whoever is listed as the contact person of the program to find out more. Another good resource is ASHA EdFind, which will list within the website how many people who were given admission offers to a school also receive some kind of financial offer. So then you can see basically what the trend was for, I think, the year before, since they had to report every year. A few other situations I know of is for some public schools, for example, they can get you in-state tuition, whether it's after your first semester or your first year. So not necessarily a scholarship, but a way of kind of incentivizing out-of-state students to come to the university by kind of carving out a path for you to qualify for in-state tuition. So there are a few different options that I've seen that were available to students while applying.
If no one is asking, I have a question about applying to grad school and finding jobs. I'm applying to grad school programs this semester, and I heard that it's always good to have your professors to write the 3 letters of recommendation, right? And I wonder, is there a difference if I find PhD teachers to write my letters or just master teachers? Because some of my professor, I work with them, but they don't have a PhD. And I've seen somewhere online saying that having a PhD might be better, but I don't know if that's true.
I feel like, and this is coming from a current graduate student, I am not on any type of admissions committee, but I feel like I would want professors that can speak on the best of my behalf. Like whoever can speak to your abilities, your experiences, whatever they think that is special about you and unique about you that you can bring to this grad school program that you're applying to. I feel like that would matter more than their degree. And for my letters of recommendation, I did 2 professors. I can't even remember if they had a doctorate. I think one did, but like it's not at the top of my mind, you know. And then my 3rd letter of rec was from my special education teacher that I worked alongside as an aide. I know for the programs that I applied to, and anyone else can jump in on this, I believe at least 2 had to be speech language pathologists or professors. So then I had chosen my 3rd one as my teacher that I worked with because I feel like she could speak on my strengths with working with children in the special education program that have complex communication needs and how I went with them with their speech therapy sessions and helped facilitate communication with them. So
Thank you. And if I'm applying to speech program, I'm interested in the speech path. Is it okay to have audiology professor to write my letter, or it works? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I totally agree with what Janella said about picking more professor who can speak more to your abilities. I will say on the other end, when you are reading letters of recommendation from professors or from anybody somebody asks, this sounds awkward, but it's pretty easy to tell when the professor doesn't really know the student, or they're kind of like, oh, you know, I had them in this one class or this one thing, but I didn't interact with them that much. And it's so different from whether it's a professor or a clinician or whomever, like you're even like an advisor, let's say for a student organization, you're really involved in an undergrad who's like writing all these amazing things about you and knows so much about you and all you contributed. There's a huge difference in the letters those people can write. And I think it really comes across to the reader who's considering your application.
I totally agree on that. And I would want to add to students who are going to apply for graduate school this year, when you ask for a letter of recommendation, you wanted to prepare the faculty to write you a letter. You don't just want to say, can you write me a letter? Thank you. And that's it. That you wanted to say more about who you are, and you wanted to connect yourself with the faculty so they know what your strengths are, because every faculty member works with like 100+ students. If you want to stand out, you want them to write a good personalized letter for you, you need to prepare for that. You need to have a lot of information that you're ready to give it to the person. So when students ask me for a letter, I will say, tell me about the courses you're with me. Tell me what you did so great about the courses that you took with me. Tell me your clinical potential. Tell me your what you did so well in classes. Like, give me something that I can make it very personalized for you. So that means you need to do your homework. So your faculty member who writes your letter will write you a really good letter, because that shows the person really knows about you.
So when I ask them to write these letters, if I'm applying to like maybe 4 to 5 different programs, and each professor, do they have to write many different letters for me? I feel like it's a lot of workload for them. But because each program have their unique thing to talk about, so if I tell them, oh, why do I fit this program and that program, then they will have to change for like they will have to write a lot of new letters, right?
I'm gonna add to that. What you said is true. Yes, professors might have to tweak. They could choose not to, because you won't know like what they wrote. They'll send it to the program yourself. But what I did was I sent a link to like the mission and visions of each program, so that they kind of know what the program like aims for, and but again, that's their decision to like tweak it or not. But having that resource for them is really helpful if they were to like write a letter for this university who they know someone of, and write to the university where they might know nothing about. So just sending links of like the university's mission or vision page.
This is just along the lines, but I was also told that don't assume that the professor will write a letter for you. So sometimes they might reject you, and that's okay. That's because maybe sometimes they have a cap to how many letters they would be able to write in a semester. So sometimes that doesn't mean that, you're doing badly, or, you're not doing a good job, but it just means that maybe they have too much on their hands, or there are other reasons behind it that you don't know. So I was just told that sometimes like just be prepared that not everybody will say yes, and that is okay.
I asked 3 of the professors who could write me a letter of recommendation, but I did not ask them until which day do they have to write me a recommendation of letter. Do you think when is the great time? A lot of Cal State University has starting December 1st to January 15, I guess. So what is the assuming date for the deadline, do you think?
I would say the earlier the better. That's the general rule of thumb with applying to grad schools, asking for a letter of recommendations, letter of intent. The earlier the better.
And also to piggyback on that, 100% agree with Herman. But as someone who did her postbac at Cal State Fullerton too, I know the professors teach a large undergrad classes, as well as our postbac cohorts, and then some professors also teach graduate students. So I know that a lot of the professors have a cap at how many students they will write letters for. I think that was also mentioned earlier. So I would ask whoever you want to ask, professors, advisors, whoever you are thinking of asking, I would ask the sooner the better.
Thank you.
There's a couple of questions that are kind of similar. Like, can some of you share your experiences about how you are being an API person in your graduate program? What is it like being a graduate student?
I can comment on that. I think probably in my program of grad students, I was maybe out of 30, there were like 2 minorities, me included. So, but I think it's really good. I really feel like this field needs more diversity. I mean, it's 90% Caucasian, 95% Caucasian, 95. I know that it was quoted somewhere around 95%. But, you know, I work in the hospital outside of Washington, D.C. It's very diverse. But I find that like when I come across patients and their families who are Filipino or Asian, it's almost like we're able to culturally bond a little bit more, or just like I understand where they're coming from. So if like a patient's wife is saying he needs to eat right now, I get it because my mom would tell me you need to eat right now, or it's very, you know, food is very important in Asian culture. So I feel like in that sense, I kind of have a different perspective on my team right now of 15 speech therapists. Again, I'm probably one of 3 minorities on the team. But I think we obviously add a different perspective and can have, I don't know, just have a little more, bit more of a connection with some patients. Yeah.
I can kind of add on to that. Right now in my cohort, I'm the only API male international student, which is like very rare. But I want to preface this by saying there are times where you might feel like you're different than everyone else, you know, you can't relate. But always remember that what you're bringing to the table is not just the diversity piece, what you look like outside, but it's also what you think and your background and experiences. Because like especially as I would say studying in the Midwest, especially a lot of professors or students have a background where they're mostly Caucasian, and they might like give you clinical like advice experience on like very, I wouldn't say like diverse minds, like they yeah, basically you're here not just to learn, but it also I guess to like provide them your experience, your standpoint. So I guess sometimes you're not wrong. It's just them being quote unquote ignorant. So I guess that's kind of my experience with this.
I think in my program, there is an office called the JEDI office. I think it's just stand for justice. Sorry, I'm not good with acronym, but they promote DEI and also organize BIPOC student group meet and greet. So that's also a way to build like report from student at MGH, IHP in Boston. We usually house in a school where there's OTPT and nursing students. So you might feel like you're a minority in SLP program, but you might find someone who's experienced similar thing within the like under the healthcare field, but in your school. So that's also a good way to build connection there. Once you become SLP, you'll end up working into it professionally anyway. So I think that's a good way of building connections early on too. And yeah, I think some of you might have joined like Asian Culture Club in your college. Maybe do some of that if you can bring some of that to graduate school. I think that might be something new you could bring to your program, or you can join what has already been existed already. I think that's really cool. And our faculty, our school is trying to hire diverse faculty as well. So I might see people who are not just Caucasian. They might be people that are similar to us or different. But we also have a course. I think one of the professor noticed in the field, it's very Caucasian field, but they're like, hey, we need diversity. Why don't we everybody take a course on teaching language to diverse family, and it's just an elective course at MGH. Oh, sorry, not elective, it's required course. So everybody has to take it. So everybody have to learn about diversity. Nobody's better than anyone. So I think that also opened an opportunity to talk about things like that too, and for you to share your thoughts and experiences.
Did anybody get an interview for applying for graduate school? Would you like to talk about your experience about getting interviewed?
I can try. It's been a while, so I'm trying to like remember what I did. But so I applied to 6 schools, and out of the 6 schools, 2 schools, which were both in California, needed an interview. So one of them was, I think, USC Chico, and the other was SJSU, San Jose State University. And both were really different. They were one-to-one interviews. Chico's one was more of like getting to know you, why you chose the program, and they just want to know more about your clinical interests, why you're fit for the school, and just other get to know you questions. So that was more like a chill interview. It was like only 30 minutes. But SJSU's one, at least for me, was a little more intense, I would say. They were kind of quizzing me on like SLP knowledge. So I had to prepare for that. And they did warn you. They did tell you that we will be quizzing you on SLP knowledge. So they literally asked me like things like, what is the EBP? What does it stand for? How can you use it in like this scenario? What are two, because I wanted to be pediatric focused at the time when I was applying. So they asked me, what are the 2 assessments that you can think of that you've used or you've encountered for a pediatric like speech disorder like client? And I had to say like the CAP, the GFTA, and I had to give like, and they asked me to like name the whole test. They asked me to give like examples. So I would say that was more intense, and both were really different. So I would say just make sure to, I guess, be prepared, read every document that they send you before the interview. Yeah, that was my experience. But it wasn't, I wouldn't say it was too bad. They didn't ask you too like in-depth questions, but it was definitely a little like nerve-wracking because they were just like quizzing you on the spot, but not too bad, I would say. Yeah.
I had a variety of interview experiences when I was applying for grad school. I think the one that was most different was that one of them had a virtual group interview. So there was a panel of the professors who were part of the admission committee, and then there were, I don't know, maybe like 10 or so applicants. And so they would, ask you questions and you're responding in a group there. And then most of my other ones were one-on-one via video. Some programs will give you the option of going in person. However, I remember one program, the option was for me to like fly to Texas on a Wednesday, and that just wasn't going to work for me. And so they said, if you can't do that, you can do it virtually. I felt pretty comfortable doing interviews when I was an undergrad, but I did do, I think, 1 or 2 practice ones just to rehearse a little bit with I don't remember the name of it, but I know a lot of universities have kind of this like employment career center, student success center, something like that. A lot of universities have that resource where you basically go and they have professors, volunteers, staff members who their job is to help you prepare for these kinds of things, job interviews, grad school interviews, and they'll do a mock interview with you. They'll help you kind of tease out your responses to things, or maybe help to prepare and pre-think about certain questions. And if you're somebody who, maybe speaking on the spot or kind of off the cuff about things can be stressful for you, kind of think about different things beforehand. When Dorcas, when you mentioned the kind of big range in the 2 different interviews you did, I would also say that you could reach out to current like graduate students or previous students of the program to ask them exactly what it was. So, figure out if it was more of a kind of clinical quizzing style, or were they more asking about your goals, or did they go through some things in your resume and ask you to elaborate on those, just so you are a little bit more prepared.
I think interviews are really scary for obvious reasons, right? We want to get into grad school, but they're asking these questions and you want to say the right thing. I think I practiced like talking to myself about general, like, why do I want to be a speech language pathologist? Why did I apply to this school? Just general questions that I had a feeling more or less grad schools would ask me. I I had practiced that myself. And also, I just want to bring up how interviews are a really good way for you to ask those grad school programs questions as well. It seems like a lot of you guys have specific clinical interests, whether it's research or pediatrics or maybe adults, or maybe you have a very niche interest in aphasia, right? This is your opportunity. Like you got the interview, they liked you on paper, they want to meet you in person. This is your chance to ask some questions like what part of this program can help you in your clinical journey into becoming a speech language pathologist or an audiologist, right? So I know interviews are very daunting and scary, but I think this is a good opportunity for them to get to know you and for you to get to know the program as well.
One tip I had for interviews is when they ask like, oh, do you have any questions? Is to ask them a question because that's your chance to shine. And you could even ask them questions like, what's your favorite part of the job as an SLP? Just anything. Yeah, I would say I encourage you to ask a question because that really shows that you're interested to learn more and you're just aware that, you're still a student and it's okay to not know everything, but here you are trying to learn more about the job, more about the program. Yeah.
Does any of you work while you're in graduate school? What is that like? How do you balance work and school?
So
So
I
oh, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. Right now I'm working as a research assistant in graduate school, which is not recommended usually. They usually recommend people to like focus on graduate school and not work. But it gave me the assistantship, so I had to work. But what I did was I balanced out my graduate school stuff and my work stuff like by separating like days I could work them on. And what I did was like I put up writing blocks in my calendar. So I saved those writing blocks specifically for writing clinic stuff and like separate that aside from work. So that's how I kind of balanced it right now.
So I worked all the way through grad school, but I chose something that was relatively flexible because I knew that you never know, like in terms of studying and classes and semester what things would look like. So I just took a job as a tutor for like a young family locally. They were really flexible. I think I worked like maybe like twice a week, like for 2 or 3 hours. And then in my second year, I did a little bit of like data collection with a researcher, a speech pathology researcher. So, I mean, it's a lot of work in grad school, so I wanted to make sure I was focusing on my classes and my internships and everything. But so I kind of chose things that were a little bit more flexible and not too much of a commitment, but you're making pocket money, so.
I also work during grad school too, like agreeing to what people have already said, Herman, really block out your time. Like if Monday, Wednesday, Friday is your school, I would not schedule work during those days. If you have like off days, like maybe Thursday, Tuesday, you feel like you have the bandwidth to work a couple hours, do it, or work over the weekend if you can, but I don't recommend it because you need some time for yourself and self-care. And there's also a thing called imposter syndrome. Like a lot of people feel it. It just once grad school and everything's upon you, you just feel like you just need to give yourself time to adjust. First semester was definitely an adjustment time, but don't overstress it. Grad school is fun and it's only 2 years, so if you could get a job that's more flexible. I also have a research job, but I set my own deadline, so that's super nice. So nobody's chasing after me for data and whatnot, so I appreciate that. So if I want to get distracted and don't do speech stuff, I can do my data stuff. So it's like a nice side thing.
There's a question about resume. Like what will be the things that you would put on a resume. And there's more questions in the chat.
This is a general question because I don't remember. Does ASHA have a resume review service?
I'm not aware of that. Does
Maybe
anybody?
NISHLA has something like that, like a resume like
Okay.
workshop type of thing, but they don't offer it often.
Okay. So the reason I bring it up, so if you are applying to grad school for audiology and you're involved in the American Academy of Audiology, they do have a resume review service where you basically send in your resume and one of the professionals who's volunteering is happy to look over it for you, give you any pointers. I feel like I've mentioned university resources so much, but a lot of universities also have the career center that's happy to review your resume and see what's most fitting. I think something that people will talk about with your application as a whole is that think of like every line you have on your resume and every line within your word limit of your sorry, not cover letter, your statement of purpose or your letter of intent is limited. So use your space and use your words wisely. If you are going to elaborate on something a lot in your statement of purpose and your letter of intent, great, then don't take up so much space on your resume because people are just going to be, reading the same thing twice about you and you'd rather they know more. Another thing about resumes that I think I said something similar about like a statement of purpose, but whoever's looking at it is going to be looking at so many resumes that day. So again, things that'll, jump out, make you stick out, like numbers, figures, tangibles of what you contributed to an organization or what you did as a student leader or something like that. Because if you imagine a whole bunch of people who are applying to grad school for speech or audiology, everybody got involved in their local NISLA chapter and everybody did this and everybody did that. And they all start to blend together at some point. So trying to find things that separate you.
Janella put a resume link, a workshop in the chat box. So please take a look. That looks amazing. It's hosted by NESLA, right? NESLA, and the date is this November 20th. And one thing I would like to add to resume is that if you know any grad students in your program, you could ask them for a copy of their resume to see what it looks like. What does it look like to have like what kind of experiences that they usually put on a resume? So if you can get an example on how to write like you can ask graduate student with different types of experiences, and then maybe just not ask if they don't want to just send you a resume, just like, can I take a look of your resume? What does it look like? It will help me write my own. Well, it's been an hour. It's 8:30 my time. It'll be 6:30 for people in California or 9:30 for people in the East Coast. Well, any final questions or we are good to go? If you have any more questions, feel free to email me and I can send an email to our panelists and I'm sure they will be happy to answer those questions for you. So I just wanted to thank all our panelists and the people who participate in this API Caucus event. And don't forget to check out the responses from the chat because we have people who put questions in, and we also have our panelists also answered the questions there. All right, I'm gonna stop recording.